In this video, I wanted to talk about what proxy servers are, how it is used, and how we can utilize it. So, if you've never really heard about proxy servers, it might come out as daunting to you. But in actuality, it's very seamless to integrate, especially when you're using tools such as Express. So, let's start off with what proxy servers are. So, proxy servers acts as an intermediary between a client and a server. So, whenever a client requests something, it goes to the proxy server sends that to the server, and the server responds, and proxy server responds back to the client. Now, the main benefit of this is the client never really knows the underlying server that is responding to it. So, the number one reason of using proxy server is perhaps security. So, whenever a client requests something of the server, it's the IP address or the URL of our underlying servers are never really exposed. So, the client is never really aware of who is sending the data to them. So, it's as though the proxy server itself sends data to the client. So, this is one among the many reasons. Now, speaking of proxy servers, we have multiple different kinds of proxy servers. So, we have reverse proxy servers, we have transparent proxy servers, we have web proxy servers, all having their utility. But in this video, we are going to concentrate on just what proxy servers are, because once you do know of what proxy servers are, those other kind of servers, proxy servers, become very easy to understand. So that's one utility, which was security. The other amazing utility which I've found out is its ability to act as a load balancer. So let's assume that we have three servers here. So based on how we program this proxy server, it can send requests to each of these servers depending on what we want it to do. So let's say based on certain geolocations, I want to send a request to this server based on some, let's say, IP address, or if it's has something to do with the particular logic of an API, I could make it call this server. So the other utility of it would be load balancers. We could also additionally use it for rate limiting our APIs. We could cache our APIs. We could also integrate a logging facility, and the one of the other utilities of it would be, let's assume we have a third party API and we don't want to expose its API keys to the client. So what we could do is we could program this proxy server to ask something of this API, and the API sends back to this proxy server. The proxy server sends the data to the client as though it itself came up with the data. So today what we are going to do is I'll be showing you how to set up a basic proxy server in Express. I'll also show you how to host it in vercel, so that if you want to play around with it, you could probably do it and host it in this vercel. So that's what we are going to do today. Hope it is valuable to you. I've got VS Code running here, and this is a very basic Express app that is running in port 8000. So in order for us to create a proxy middleware, we'll need to install this package called HTTP proxy middleware, and we'll be using the create proxy middleware function. So now for us to create our middleware, what we have to do is we have to just mention it. So app.use, we have to mention the endpoint to which this proxy middleware has to intercept it. So we mention that we have to create a middleware for this /API endpoint. So whether it's get, post, doesn't really matter. And then we have to mention the target. So whenever a request is coming in, where we should forward it to. So in our case, we'll be having another instance of Express running in port 4000. So all the requests coming in will be transmitted to this, will be conveyed to this HTTP localhost 4000. And then I'll also have to mention another attribute which is change origin. So this basically changes the origin of the header to the target URL. Then I just listen to it and we can basically start. So now let's go to this Express instance, so which is this one right here. Again, this is a very simple Express application. This will be running in port 4000. We have 3 different endpoints. One is a /API. This basically just gives a message saying get request received, and then we have a get all endpoint which says get all request received, and a post endpoint which takes the post from the body and just returns it back to the user. And if there is no post, we throw an error. Additionally, we've got 2 middlewares running here. So one is the error handler. So whenever I throw an error, this middleware handles it, and whenever an endpoint that does not exist is hit, this middleware runs. So that is basically the gist of what we have right here. Now let's try running our proxy server. So I'll npm run dev this, and you can see we are getting a print in our terminal which is saying a proxy is created and all the requests is being forwarded to this endpoint right here. Now let us start this Express as well. So this is the Express app that will be running in port 4000. So I'll say npm run dev this, and I should be getting another log. Yeah, port 4000. So now let's try hitting the endpoint of this app through our proxy server. Again, our proxy server is running port 8000. So let us make a request to this now. So localhost, I'll say 8000/API. You can see we get a get request received here, and if I say get all, I should get a get all request received. Now let us try this method as well, which is the post method, add post. So for that we'll be using postman http localhost 8000/API/add post, and for the post itself we are just saying my first post. I'll hit it, and you can say I get this right here, basically the same thing back. And if I give no post, I should get no post found. So all of this is working. Now let us make it a little more interesting. So in our proxy server right here, let me add another logic. So this is again in the middleware. So at the beginning of the video I mentioned how we could add a logging mechanism. So whenever requests are being sent to a proxy server, we could log them. So you could do something like this. So in our case, we're just console logging it out. So whenever a request is being made, we get the method URL and also the user agent. So let me save everything, right? And let me try hitting that endpoint again. So this is get all. I hit it, and if I go back to VS Code, I should start getting the logs as well. So you can see how we could build on this to build a dashboard containing logs if you're interested in it. So you can see get request received and get all endpoint hit. Now let me try hitting get. So get should be /API. I go back to VS Code, and you can see I get a /get API endpoint. Now let us try giving a post request. So here again I'll do the same thing, send it my first post. I should get post add post. We're getting the user agent as well, postman runtime. So this is the gist of what I was talking about, like the logging functionality. Now let us go further by deploying this in vercel. Now in order for you to deploy this proxy server in vercel, what you have to do is in the folder itself, if you see right here, this is our structure. You have to create a new folder called API, and inside that again index.ts, and it's basically the same code which I wrote in here goes right here. So this is the proxy middleware, and this time around we'll be actually tunneling our local host endpoint through ngrok, and I'll show you how in just a moment. And we also have another functionality for API limiter, which again I talked at the beginning on how we could utilize API limits to our APIs. So I've used this package called express rate limit. Now let's talk about what this ngrok is. So as you can see, we are actually using our local host as the endpoint, but whenever we are deploying it, we want it in HTTPS protocol. So for that, a very good tool would be to use something like ngrok, and to get started with it is pretty seamless. So you could just follow this guide right here. You just brew install, and then you generate a auth token, and it you can get started with it. So in our case, this is a simple express server which is running port 4000. So once ngrok is installed, what you have to do is ngrok say http and the port of the endpoint which you want to tunnel to. So 4000, since this is running in port 4000, I mentioned 4000. I hit enter, and you can see we get a url here, right here. This is the tunneled endpoint. So if I copy this, and I'll just show you how it is working. So if I hit /API now, I'll still be able to hit those endpoints. Same thing with get all, and same thing is with the add post. So what we have to do here is, so if I go back to our proxy server, you can see here index.js. I'll just give in the newly created endpoint, which is this. So now in order for us to deploy this in vercel, if you've never really used it, it's again very simple. So you go to their site, which is vercel. If you've not signed up, just sign up, and once you've finished signing up, this is the page which will be led to. So you just click in add new, click projects, and additionally this should also be, your proxy server should be in GitHub. So just push this to GitHub in the main branch and you'll be fine. So once that's done, you just import it. So my vercel is connected to GitHub, therefore I get all these repos which I've recently created. So you just import the one which you want to deploy. So for me it was vercel proxy server. I won't click import now because I've already imported it. So once that's done, you can go to deployments and just click on your server, and this should be up and running. So once that's done, since I've made a change here, I want this newly created one to go here, and because we are using vercel, it already comes in with the CI/CD built in. So what I have to do is I'll say git status, because I want the latest changes to be deployed, and I say git add everything. Then I also say I'll give a commit message saying changed ngrok, and I'll push this. So git push should do the trick, and once it's pushed, if you go back to vercel's dashboard, you should see the upcoming changes right here. So let's wait for this to get built and we'll try it out. So it's done building and it seems it was successful, which is good. So now let me go to this domain right here, HTTPS. Now I'll try hitting that endpoint. So /API, I hit enter. I should get this page of ngrok just to make sure we are actually using ngrok. So visit site, you get this get request received. Now if I say get all, say get all request received. Now let me try that post data as well. So let me go to our postman right here, and I'll just copy in this, take in all of that, and I'll try hitting this, and you see I still get my first post. So this is how you build a proxy server and deploy it in vercel. So probably in the upcoming videos, if you are interested, we could actually build a logging mechanism. And speaking of logging mechanism, I wanted to show another thing. So if I go to proxy our vercel server right here, and if I go to logs, you can actually start seeing the logs of the proxy server because it's hosted in vercel. So you can see I hit API, I hit get all, and add post. So we could probably build something like this and not utilize vercel and build our own custom dashboard. So this is perhaps a very good inspiration for us. So again, let me say /API, hit get request received and it should reflect here. Let me try refreshing this, and sometimes it's a bit slow. Yep, it's let me try refreshing it again. Okay, it's still not updated. Yeah, sometimes it just takes some time. Let me just click another one. Yeah, now it's come up, so you can see add post and /API. So this is a very good foundation for us to begin working with proxy server. That's it for this video, and hopefully this was useful to all of you.